Welcome to Charmed Life, a radio show discussing spirituality, magic, and the unconditional love of the universe. Thanks for tuning in. And I'm your host, Tricia Carr. Thank you for joining me today. And I am so excited about today's show. Well, before I bring on my guest, who, by the way, is in studio, quite handsome. Oh, that's just a tease. We're talking about Jarvis, though, too. Jarvis is always in studio and always handsome. Hello, Jarvis Essex, my producer. And I want to tell y'all just a couple of things. First of all, I have opened up spots for my mentoring program, limited spaces, but y'all can go on to my website and read about it, and it's triciacarcharm.com/mentoring. And one more thing, you can always find my on-demand classes at triciacarcharm.com. You can go to Healing Arts Academy. I have some on-demand classes as well as several live ones coming up. This one is not open for registration yet, but it is Archangels and Universal Laws. Each week, I'll be channeling some information from an archangel about a universal law, and I'm very excited about this program. But again, if you're interested in working with me, check out my mentoring. Also, my Patreon page. We have an amazing community going there on my Patreon page. It is patreon.com/Tricia Carr. We meet at least twice per month doing live group activations / meditations, as well as a hangout we do on the new moon. We just did a new moon hangout the other day, and many of the people from my Patreon group community showed up, and boy, we had a great time. All kinds of awesome sharing and questions, and we all were able to just grow. The light was really there with us, and it was awesome. So I hope you'll go check that out. And of course, if you're interested in working with me, I actually do suggest that you go to my Patreon page first, because there are different levels of patronage that get you discounts and stuff. So you could do that, and that would be really smart, and there's a little bit added benefit for you. All right, without any further ado, thank you, Jarvis. I remember. Yo, Lightworkers Lab, online spiritual community, of which I am a guide and a teacher. You can find the Lightworkers Lab on Facebook as a group. It's founded by my sweet, dear, amazing, what can I say about Crystal Ann Compton? I don't know. She's amazing. She's powerful. I think she's on path to be an avatar. That's what she says. and I agree. But Crystal Ann Compton, you can find her YouTube page as well, or her YouTube channel is amazing, packed full of all kinds of educational videos. And she founded the Lightworkers Lab, which is a community of spiritual seekers and all kinds of resources there. Pretty much every single night, there's someone up teaching and offering reading and healing as well. So I hope you go check that out. Just look for the Lightworkers Lab in Facebook. And now, without further ado, I would love to welcome my in-studio guest. He is a healer. He is a quantum healing hypnosis technician. I don't know if that's what we call it. So. Jeroen de Wit, welcome.
Hi, Tricia. Thank you for having me on the show. I love the work that you do, and it's so good to hear you, see you do this.
Oh, thank you. Well. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's fun being in studio, isn't it?
It is, yeah. A little overwhelmed by the cameras and the microphones.
They go away in just a second.
Okay.
Well, Jeroen is certified, level 3 with Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, which is Dolores Cannon's technique, the late Dolores Cannon. Well, not late, the present, the eternal.
The eternal. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
She's not late. And and I actually had a session 2 weeks ago, I think it was. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So I'm super excited. We did some powerful work. You're an incredible healer, and you have so many other modalities that you are expert in. So why don't you let everyone know about your journey, your path, your work.
All right. Well,
thank you.
Yeah.
Get us into you.
So my name first, because there was a little hiccup here with the name. This is very common.
Did I just say it weird?
No, you did perfectly.
I did okay this time? Okay.
So my name is very, very Dutch. It's very, very common. It sounds very exotic here in LA. And of course, I play that angle. But yeah, it's very, very common. The country I'm from, Jeroen is how you pronounce it. So yeah, I'm from the Netherlands. That's where I was born. I've been in LA since 2007. So my healing journey started... well, I've always been interested in the unseen as a kid. I was just always looking behind the physical world. And then I had a sort of spiritual crisis back in 1996, and that sort of put me on the path. Oh. And so I started learning energy healing and different meditations. And then in 2006, I picked up a book at a friend's practice, and it was one of Dolores's books, and I was just blown away by the information in it.
Oh, wow.
And it just resonated so much with what I believe to be true about life. And so I looked up this lady and found out she was teaching in the Netherlands.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, and so I took her class. I was able to join her class, and you know, I've always had trouble being in school. You know, I've always got C's or barely made it, or had extended terms to, you know, submit my work. But this particular class, I was completely sort of locked on target, absorbing all the information. And I've been regressing people ever since.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really a wonderful technique.
Wow. And that's amazing that you got to work with her too.
Yes.
Well, I mean, so this was just about 12 years ago that you were able to work with her? When did she pass?
In 2014.
14. Oh, gosh, not that long ago, actually. I imagine she got really busy at the end. It probably would have been difficult had you found her a little bit later, right? Or was she teaching up until
She was still teaching, I think, but private sessions, I heard when she passed, there was a waiting list for like 16 years or something crazy. Yeah, so she was a very, very busy lady.
Who's fulfilling those appointments now?
I don't know what happened with it. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of, she trained lots of people, you know, I'm not the only one. There's people all over the world. So yeah, if you do want to have a session, go to dolorescannon.com and use the Find a Practitioner feature to find somebody in your area that can help you with doing a QHHT session. Yeah.
And really, are they always done in person?
They're always done in person.
person?
Yeah. Dolores was adamant about that, to not do it over Skype, because crazy things can happen during a session where people, you know, their body starts processing different things, or if the connection gets lost, you know, that might be tricky as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just off and hello. You can imagine you're just like off on some other star.
Right.
How do I get off of this
Never
star?
came back. Right.
Oh, there's some people who are like, yes, do that for me, please.
Oh, please, yes. Disconnect.
Have you seen what's going on in politics?
That's totally true. Yeah.
But you don't know what star you could get on. You could get in some Draco business that.
You never know. I mean, anything is possible.
Or any timeline too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it. So this is sort of the fun of my work. I'm a Gemini, so I like lots of variety. So I never know what's going to happen. Every day is something new. Are people going to stay in their current lifetime, or are they going to go into the future, or parallel lives, or what we call past lives, or lives on different planets, in different bodies, aliens? Just all kinds of outlandishness.
Well, gosh, I'm sure. So basically it is a technique. I don't know, what distinguishes it from other techniques? Is it particularly intention? And what would you say distinguishes it?
It distinguishes it because Dolores Cannon incorporated the level of the soul.
Yeah.
So when it uses hypnosis, and so I think traditional hypnosis, it uses programming the conscious mind, and NLP. And so Dolores added the level of the soul, and that's really what we're going for. So the point of a session is to create a stronger opening to your higher self, to your soul, and to have it come in and do the programming or the healing or whatever is pertinent for you.
And I remember in my session, so a lot of people, probably the misconception is that you don't remember any of it. You go completely like you blacked out from, you know, a wild party. And it's not, I didn't actually think that would happen because I meditate all the time.
Right.
And I just figured it was going to be like a deeper trance, you know, or as deep as I go, maybe deeper. I don't know. But I didn't think it was going to be so fantastic. And I induce people in my teaching as a way to get into the subconscious mind so that I can train them to be able to be in that intuitive mind, to give intuitive readings and healing and stuff when that's their intention. So, but what I do remember is, and one of the things I remember is when we were working with my subconscious mind and referring to myself in the third person, but it felt so appropriate and weird at the same time. Because, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, well, who's saying this? Oh, I'm saying this. Who?
Right. Where am I in my experience?
Yeah. Right. So cool. Well, and you're also certified in other modalities, energy healing techniques and.
Yeah, so energy healing. I mean, I must say the bulk of what I do is QHHT, and that's where my heart is really. But I do energy healing as well, and then I teach meditation. I connect people to healing guides that come in the form of dragons.
Oh yes, y'all know I love dragons.
Dragon energy. Yeah, I've been doing that since 2008. Yeah, and so it's a really wonderful way to explore your own energy anatomy and to learn how to manage your own energy instead of being managed by it like I still am sometimes.
Yeah, because you're an empath, exactly.
Thank you. Yeah. So there was always lots of stuff going on inside of me. So I reached out for tools that could help me with it, and so I found the dragons were really helpful. Yeah.
I love dragons. So I don't remember if I've told on the show before that one of my dragons, I met him again after my awakening, but he'd been with me I think he'd been with me since birth, but I remember having dreams about him from age as young as I could remember until about age 11 and a half. And he reminded me after I met him again, a few years ago, about those dreams that I thought were recurring nightmares, because even the second we come out of the birth canal, we are getting conditioned and we're afraid anyway. It's interesting, someone in a class or something, or maybe in the Lightworkers Lab said, children are so high vibrational, so why would they be seeing things that are dark? And I was like, are they high vibrational? They're really scared. We are really scared when we're little because we come from pure consciousness, and this is a scary place. Right. So no, they're not perfect. Children aren't perfect, and they're not necessarily high vibrational, as scared as we are about being here in this battle zone. And so I was afraid of my dragon in my dream, and he made himself look like a kid-friendly cartoon, and I was still afraid of him. Right. So he finally, after probably 10 years, stopped showing up. Or I closed it down.
I give up.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm little and I'm a cartoon. What else does she want from me?
Right. And it's funny that you mention it, because I tell people all the time, like, your dragon might not look like what we think of as a typical dragon. So we've had Barney show up a couple times. Yeah, that does happen. Again,
yeah, like whatever is easy for you,
to absorb.
To
relate to.
Yeah, one of the first guides I connected with showed up as a gold-skinned diminutive leprechaun, and she hardly had a face. She was just golden, and and I was like, okay, that's fine, and always just lean into it and say yes to it.
Right.
And then it usually, or a lot of times, that guide will develop into something else.
Was that you, the session with the leprechaun?
Yes. Yeah.
That was you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was kind of a leprechaun. In my regression, I don't know. I think it was maybe parallel existence or something, right? I couldn't tell if it seemed like Earth or not. And he seemed Earth-like.
It felt like Lemuria or Mu or something.
Yeah. But what's cool about it is it was still very physical.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and I guess, of course, in Lemuria, there were physical beings. There were, fully 3D beings, and we felt fully 3D who worked with, the higher realms is what it felt like. We kept talking about magic.
Yeah, that's what my experience is with those realms through my sessions, that there is form and shape.
Yeah.
And what you said earlier about that you didn't feel like you were completely knocked out and that you didn't remember, this is quite common.
Sure.
So somehow people have related to this technique that people just go completely unconscious, and that's what they want, because then their own conscious mind is not present. But I think because the energy is changing, that people are more able to access their higher self on a daily basis. They're more aware of it. They're more in tune with it.
Yeah.
And so it's only like, I'd say about 5% of the people that go sort of completely unconscious, that don't remember.
About 5?
Yeah.
And they don't remember at all?
No.
And then they're like fascinated with the playback?
Yes. So I must say, like, lots of us, we come out of it and then we still remember it, but then it fades really quick.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. I haven't listened back yet, because I'm sure it's going to fade even more, and then it'll be interesting to dig in after. Just like a dream, if you don't journal your dream, even if you remember it right when you wake up, it often fades.
Right.
And so I assume that's what I'm on, for.
Right. No, that's what I tell people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Wow, cool. So you've had it. How many times have you actually been regressed yourself?
I'd say about 6 or 7.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Do you do it every now and again to, as a...
Kind of just when it comes up. Like the last time was when I did my level 3 certification. We just did an exchange.
Okay.
And might as well,
Yeah.
And so, for me, it's the same. And I'm very aware of who I am laying on a table. And actually, for me, images are secondary. So it's more of a knowing for me. So that's how my higher self talks to me, and through feelings. And then the images sort of drop in later.
Oh, cool.
So, that's a way to talk.
Yeah, we talk about that in my classes a lot. People are always curious about, like, either how to develop certain clairsenses, or, like clairvoyances. Everyone is kind of like fascinated with clairvoyance, but however you perceive, and you don't really have to judge it. So for you, clairvoyance is kind of secondary to the feeling, because you're such an empath.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just translating vibration anyway.
So I get these people as well. They want to see, or else it's not going to be good enough.
It's not going to work. Yeah, it's not going to be true.
A lot of what people come in with is looking for validation in some way or another. And so the process is very much about them learning how to validate themselves and to know that, you know, it is normal to have these extrasensory experiences, that we are all multidimensional beings. And it's not like some creature has to come in and flip some switches and suddenly, you know, you can see, and that's the only way that you're supposed to be receiving that information. No, we're constantly processing that information. Yeah. And so it's to normalize that. You know, we live in a society right now still where we've been conditioned to think of ourselves as just physical bodies and that we're supposed to be spiritual, but it's the other way around. We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's interesting, like you say, that it's all about validating. And I think that people that expect, perhaps when they expect to be completely unconscious, or, you know, whatever their expectations are, it's a sort of desire to be rescued.
Yes.
When we always are only ever going to rescue ourselves.
Yeah.
We always have to find it ourselves. We always have to, the experiences only ever happen when we say yes to our co-creation of it.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I totally, yeah. No, I deal with that quite a bit, that people come in and they think she's going to be like spiritual Santa Claus. Like they're just going to close their eyes and I'm going to do something magical, and then they're just going to get everything fixed. Like if the higher self wasn't already supporting them. And
right.
Like it was just like sitting off on a cloud and, okay, today I guess I'll step in and do something for them.
You know? They paid some money, so they paid some guy something, so better show up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a lot of the work for me to pivot their focus back to themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
This is where it happens. Yeah, right. and I'm just a facilitator.
Well, one question that I get a lot, and you probably get something along these lines, is how do I know if it's what if it's just my imagination, or is it real? Is it real spiritual? Is it real clairvoyance, or whatever it is, or is it just my imagination? And how can I tell the difference?
So that's a tricky one. So the tricky part is that we think that our imagination is just some useless part of ourselves. Or
because when we were kids, it's like, you're just imagining. Stop imagining things.
Right.
Yeah.
So we think that imagination, it comes from our ego or from some useless part of ourselves. So imagination is actually a way that our higher self communicates with us. So if you feel like you're imagining, just go ahead, make it up.
Say yes to it.
Say yes to it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've had sessions where I spoke with people's higher selves or with beings from different realms, and it was confirmed that way, that like some people that were in the fairy realm, and they were saying that their writers work with writers here on the planet to get their stories out.
Yes.
So people that are creative, when you're using your imagination, you're tapping into play. You know, you are releasing that critical faculty.
Yes.
That is always sort of censoring and trying to make things different.
Right.
So that's when you're tapping in the right side of your brain. This is where we have access to the information that we're needing during a session.
So one of the ways that I describe it is essentially there's an imaginal realm. There's a realm with the imaginal plane where these things go on. And so, yes, there are sometimes when the conscious mind is sort of offering things. And to me, it's almost like the wheel is spinning a little bit this way. And then, but if you go ahead and say yes to that and accept that, then the wheel subtly starts to turn the other way. And then you're co-creating and or receiving messages. You know,
I totally agree.
And it's happening all in the same place. So you might as well say yes to the imagining part of it, where you're actually, the wheel is spinning that way, because it's subtle. Yeah.
And so
it takes your agreement.
I totally agree. So it's also important to do it that way because play is important. You know, when we release the critical faculty, and also to just have an experience, to create it for yourself, to start with that, to know that this is good enough. And this is back to the validation, because I don't know if it's just me, but I deal with a lot of people with validation issues.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And self-worth. And so the session is very much about...
It's probably because you deal with people a lot.
Maybe,
humans,
yes,
Humans seem to have that problem.
Right. You know, I've had my own journey with that, so it's not surprising. Yeah,
totally. And I also tell, you know, when people are concerned about that, you have to just say yes to it, because it is accepting yourself.
Exactly.
And that's the first step. And
that you are good enough.
Right.
Yeah.
And spirit is a still small voice.
Yeah.
And is only going to come in with your permission
when you build relationship to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the doorway. And excuse me, with that, it's that folks, when you say yes, it's actually when you relax. And my clients or my students even, when they're asking that, well, how do I know if it's my imagination or not? And they're talking about the experiences they're having in their private time of meditation and what I call the workshop time. And I'm like, what difference does it make? You know, you're not taking a test.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you can go ahead and relax into it and journal it and say yes to it. And, you know, I saw a gold leprechaun. And she ended up telling me a name that attached to my great-grandmother. And so she's my great-grandmother on the other side.
Yeah.
And it was because I said yes to the fact that she was a leprechaun. Why not? And the first time I ever met a gnome, too. I had no idea that gnomes were actually elemental nature spirits that truly do exist. But I saw him as like the cartoon kind of gnome. And I was like, sure, why not a gnome? And then I learned about gnomes, a little bit shortly after that.
Right.
Or dragons.
Or dragons, right. So
Yeah.
that's how it happened. So yeah, I agree with that. So a lot of people think that either psychics are just very, very special. I mean, not to say that you're not special.
I'm a snowflake.
But that somehow these people are different from them. And then when they want to sort of attain those or get those, psychic senses as well, that something really miraculous or magical needs to happen. But from my perspective, it's all about building relationship with yourself.
Yes.
And the more that you build relationship with your own feelings and you're acknowledging them, and then your own inner musings, your imagination, the more you allow for that and the more you make it okay,
Yes.
the more of it will come. Yeah.
I just love this. I didn't know this was going to be such a love fest. It feels so cool. I should say that we are taking calls 323-524-2599 if you have any questions about QHHT or dragons or anything that we're getting up to today. Do call in 323-524-2599 on with Jeroen de Wit. Did I say it?
You said it so well.
I did.
Yeah,
You're
gold stars
lying.
all around.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about dragons.
All right.
When did you start working with dragons, and what does that work about for you?
So I started back in 1997, just when I had gone through sort of my spiritual knockdown, or my ego was completely shattered. And so I had met this woman in the Netherlands. Her name is Riva Leroux, and she is the woman who developed this technique, or it came through her.
Oh.
She was taught in spirit as a little girl by a Tibetan monk. He connected her with dragons, and so she's very inquisitive and curious and very psychic. So she went on a journey of exploration herself. And so I ran into her through my ex-partner at the time, and she just taught us how to do it, how to connect with your dragons, and that they're here, and how they can heal. And it opened me up to my sort of spiritual nature, to have a sort of a tangible experience of it.
That's amazing.
Rather than it be a sort of a concept. And so and I started working with the dragons ever since. And for me in the beginning, it was mostly about clearing energy, because I didn't know if I was coming or going, what I was feeling, and also to let feelings go. I wasn't raised with the capacity to experience my feelings and to express them. And so that was a bit of a journey, and the dragons were very, very helpful with that in the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. And so, by the way, if you're not familiar, dragons are real. They are in the angelic realm, and and just really very multidimensional. I connect with them on they work very dense vibration, very dense energy, which is very helpful because they are very ascended as well.
Yeah.
And I find that to be helpful because working with other kinds of guides, they sort of bring down ascended energy for you, but the dragons actually literally go down into it and help you clear it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you have the same experience. Yeah.
Yes, very much.
So they also can intermediate between angelic realms. That's my experience. That they work in tandem with angelic realms. And it's so funny because we're talking about dragons right now, because was it yesterday or the day before, I had a client that had another experience during their session where they met dragons, and so I was able to talk to it.
Yeah.
And it explained that there's dragons still around right now.
Yes.
They're in the atmosphere, but they're on different realms. So
and they've been coming in more and more since like 2012, and just as the vibration of the planet has been. I mean, there are different stargates and portals and everything that are opening up that they're pouring in through to help us.
Oh, wow.
I
haven't heard that information.
Oh, okay. That's what I feel. And perhaps it's also just because of us ascending as well and being able to kind of overlap in those areas of communication.
Right.
And so many more people. I have found that, what else was I going to say? Oh, I know. This one dragon that I spoke with, because someone asked me about oh, would you ever accidentally get confused with, say, a reptilian, like
Right.
a malevolent reptilian? Or
Right.
actually they said, are they from the same area? Are they like from the reptilian race or an offshoot? And the dragon that I connected with who talked to me about it, he was kind of he's not one that's my specific guide. He sort of stepped in for that. And he was like, no, we don't have anything to do with that particular race. I mean, that's just, we don't. But he also said that there's no way, the way he described it to me was you wouldn't get us confused with something that was malevolent, because something that is malevolent or lower vibrating like that is basically like, for someone who is seeking love, it would be like a child in a Halloween mask. Right. Trying to mimic us. It's
Right.
so obvious.
It's so obvious. I was going to say the
Yeah.
same thing. You're
Okay,
not,
good.
You're
Thank
not
you.
dummy. Like, you will
Yeah.
feel it.
Yeah.
You will experience it for sure.
You're not easily tricked. Your mind is not that weak. Your spirit certainly isn't that weak, and you
Right.
always know where love is. And
You can feel
poof.
it.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so, how many of your own personal dragon guides do you work with regularly? Because that's always a question people have. Like, do I have a dragon? And I would say, if you're asking, the answer is yes.
So, like, I have a couple, like, my earth dragon is always with me, and it sort of works in the background. It kind of runs my field in a like my energy field in a more efficient way. Like, I like to process feelings and energies out as much as I can.
Yeah.
And so that one runs in the background, and then when I go into a session like yours, I take a little moment and I call on my gold dragon, which is helpful with psychic senses, and a white dragon who connects me to other ascended masters.
Really ascended, yeah. I would think, is your gold dragon sort of works with the Christ consciousness energy and the avatar kind of energy? That's what it feels like a bit. Sort of that trans-dimensional, the human and the spirit.
So they are
sort of
bridges
apex.
between the human physical realm and the angelic realms.
Okay.
The dragons are. And so my understanding of the gold dragon is it works with Metatron.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
So you probably felt that.
So that makes a lot of sense, because Metatron is sort of like the harvester of the light workers and everything. So
Is that, I don't even know.
yeah. Metatron, well, the sort of the one who's calling us, the bringing together light workers and really kind of calling forth the people who are, the ones who are the way showers and sort of helping us to awaken.
Oh, cool. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. We talked
you.
about Metatron in my session at the beginning, didn't we? Yeah,
We
I
did?
remember. Yeah, because I remember you said, what do you experience?
Oh, yes, that was you.
Yeah.
Yes. I was like, oh, finally someone I can ask. Because, Metatron to me feels very sort of matter of fact and sort of cut and dry, not sort of color you through the experience, and you had the same experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was really funny. He was like, what is your experience of him, it, her, that, energy? You didn't want to like give me any of your own. And I was like, well, he's not warm and fuzzy. You're like, that's what I think.
Right.
But it's not that he's not love. He is. It's just... But
we're going to get down to business. We're working here.
Right. Yes, exactly. No joking around.
Right.
One of the, on my YouTube channel, there's a couple of times I have a couple of videos up, youtube.com/Tricia Carr, where I've channeled Metatron. Some Metatron energy came through. And I think there's one, I can't remember who, but I think one of the Metatron ones was, he actually said, you're looking for a rescue. And I actually kind of like projected, not yelled, but I projected, you are your own rescue. It was almost like, how can I say this to you more? It's you.
Right,
You're the one.
Right. Yeah, that's so important for our own empowerment. Yeah, it's not outside of us.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing that we're taught the entire time that we come into this experience, is that there's outside authority, always outside authority. But, it's getting much better because of the new children that have come in. And some of those new children are having children. And actually, that came through in my session, too. We were talking about the different waves of children that are coming in, and how... Well, we talked about, I remember it coming through, like why light workers or whatever, people who are the way showers, have tended to incarnate into dark families or dark energies.
Right. Our generation.
Right. And certainly before. But part of it, I remember it was like, part of it is because there weren't really any other choices.
Exactly, yes.
There weren't that many awakened families.
Right.
And part of it was like, so why not go and clean up the dirtiest mess on the planet? Where, if you're going to clean a house, you take out the trash first before you sweep the floor.
Right.
And anyway, I'm getting into my session. Let's talk a little bit more about you.
Well, I mean,
not about me. Let's talk about you.
Well, it's interesting because, I do see that my generation and the older generations, that we came here taking on all the lies about ourselves, and so and working our way back to source,
yes,
which is who we are.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes,
so,
it seems like.
And so I'm in a position, I feel very honored because I've had my own journey with that, to finding myself away from the conventions of society.
Yes.
So finding out how I had bought into identity outside of myself, like who I should be as a man, or even a gay man, or a white man, or a guy from the Netherlands, or so there was lots of messages about me that I had internalized that made me feel worthless.
Because it was false.
Because it was false, yeah. I didn't fit all those images, yeah. And so this is what I do. I call myself like a spiritual midwife.
Yes.
And so in all the work that I do, QHHT and working with the dragons and the meditations, I am here to midwife people more into their own authenticity, because that's what the path that I'm on. So that's the medicine that I carry, because I've gone through a substantial amount of it.
Yes. Yeah. By the way, you also have an MA in spiritual psychology, and part of the QHHT session is to have some counseling first. I mean,
yes, I really use that during that.
I love it.
Counseling, that first part. That's actually for me. It's a very important part to connect with my client and to see how much can be done prior to the QHHT session.
I love that. Yeah. I'm sure, and that really primes the pump. Essentially, it gets them into validation about themselves and empowerment about themselves, so that they can really slip into the spiritual, the intuitive mind in a really fulfilled way, rather than just hopping into it and thinking that they have to perform or something, I would think, right?
Yes. I mean, I think just giving people space to tell their stories and to experience them and experience their feelings is just so powerful and healing in itself.
Let me say again, we are taking calls 323-524-2599. If you have any questions on the spiritual side, anything about being able to connect with your higher self, or if you would like some intuitive insight on something, 323-524-2599. On with Jeroen de Wit. And can you tell me, Jeroen, I almost said the hard J.
That's good. You did it.
Yeah. By the way, so folks can go and see some of the work that you're doing. Do you do anything that's distance? Because we do have a global audience. Do you do any distance healing or anything like that?
I don't.
Okay, well that's fine. If you live in the Los Angeles area or in Southern California, it's worth the journey.
Yeah, come see me. People do fly in from other places, so yeah. Or like find your local practitioner if you want to do QHHT. Right.
What is your website? I just want to we're nowhere near the end of the show. I just wanted to make sure that folks... source-energy-therapy.com. Awesome. That's wonderful. Yeah. And so you have a special technique of working with the dragons. Is it a special kind of hypnosis?
It's a meditation.
Meditation?
Yeah.
And you do a session with someone and walk and lead them in the meditation, and then they start to experience their dragons?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a guided meditation.
Okay.
And so it's for people to find their own answers. So lots of people come in and they want me to do it for them. But the technique helps people to go into a place within their own consciousness where they can connect to their own higher self or have a more tangible experience of it. And then I guide them through having their own experience. So kind of, shine a light around in their own consciousness to see what is going on. Because sometimes we are very attached to needing to see very clear images. But sometimes there might be a feeling happening, or they might be hearing something or even smelling something.
Right.
Your higher self talks to you in very different ways. And so this is what I tell people, like, don't have any expectations. Just be present with what is.
It's interesting. I have I'm very visual in my clair, experience. I think probably feeling is my primary. And then I have the auditory kind of, clairaudience as well. But I'm not as visual in the physical. And I don't know.
What do you mean?
I mean, like if something happened, like my husband can, when he's playing tennis, he can stop for a second and replay like a videotape in his mind.
Oh, like memory, right.
Yeah. I can't do that. and I don't map things visually as much, or as fast at least. But for me, everything is auditory. I can replay a conversation like I'm rewinding a tape recorder.
Wow.
And then I'm always feeling, and I can tell you everything that was felt. But and also, like, I can't do visual art at all or anything like that, but I can do all kinds of other, obviously feeling and auditory type of stuff. And I don't know, do you have any kind of experience like that, or is it all sort of fluid?
I was trying to reflect on it while you were talking. For me, I feel like I'm in a sea of feeling always.
Yeah.
That's my main sort of goggles that I see the world through. And so I think like the images get colored through the feeling, and so I remember them through the feeling. Yeah, but that's my primary.
Yeah. I mean, I think my feeling is definitely my primary, but it shows up on a screen in my mind's eye right away.
It is an image for me, though. Yeah, but it starts with the feelings.
Right. Okay.
But in like the physical, I don't know. Like,
are you more visual or less visual in the physical?
I think it's what I just said, that I go for the feeling first, and then an image pops up.
Right, totally. Well, the other thing that's interesting is that in the physical, I'm very centered with olfactory, but I don't really have clairalience or clairgustance that much when I'm doing a reading. It doesn't show up that much.
I haven't seen it in many people. Yeah.
The clairalience and gustance?
Yes.
Yeah. You haven't?
I have not.
No, it doesn't show up that often, which is interesting. But yeah, when we're in the real world, when walking around, my husband's like, my God, it's like a curse.
In what way?
Well, like, because one time we walked into a store, and with my cycle, it will get even more heightened. And so we walked into a store one time, and I was like, oh, and he's like, what? I was like, it smells like Fabuloso, dusty coats, and cherry candy. And he's like, what? How do you smell dusty coats?
And you can pinpoint that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Or to get a little even more specific, a little TMI, I'll be like, oh my gosh, the housekeeper and I are synced up with our cycles. He's like, why? Oh, did she tell you? And I was like, no, I could smell it. And I don't mean that in a dirty way. I don't mean that in a really personal way. It's almost like feeling it. But yes, it's like that. Exactly. Right. It's not like I could smell her body, not to be too gross, but I could smell the pheromones. It would seem to come into my olfactory senses. Right. So it's interesting, like how I'm just curious. I'm talking about it because how the physical body maps to the spiritual body, and maybe they're not always exactly the same puzzle piece. They're sort of, they make a whole. Maybe sometimes, you know what I mean? Like they aren't necessarily the overlapping.
I haven't really thought about that. It's very interesting that you bring it up. I would have to think about it. Yeah.
Well, anyway, back to QHHT and the other techniques that you do. So, folks, with the dragons, I would love to learn more about that. For me personally, there's two particular dragons of guides of my own that I connect with all the time, and then other times dragons come in, different dragons. Like I say, they come in to work with me, but they aren't necessarily permanent guides. Is that your experience as well?
Same for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, do people? What are some of the experiences that people have if you're comfortable sharing anonymously other people's experiences in their sessions?
The one that pops up now is a friend of mine. She started working with the dragons, and she had some really severe lung issues. There were holes in her lungs, and she just had surgery on it. And so when she called in her dragon, this is the first time she worked with them, she found her dragon coming up inside of her body, and it had this space in its talons or hands, whatever you call that, and it started patting it on the inside of her lungs. And then little hairs started growing out, and they started waving in like patterns like you see like the wind blowing over grass. And afterwards she started feeling more lightness in her breath. She had more space in her lungs, and then she was on set talking to a colleague actress, and saw that the actress was taking some kind of medication, and she said, I'm taking this because I stopped smoking, and this helps my cilia to grow back.
Oh, right.
And my friend was like, cilia, what is that? And she goes, it's the little hairs on the inside of your lungs that help bring the mucus up. And she goes, oh my God, this is what I just experienced, with the dragons.
She didn't even know that's how, that's what your body does.
She didn't even know about it, yeah. She had no idea, but so it was confirmed that way.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that.
And then, you can also, with the dragons, you can go, when you have permission, like you're in a group of people, you can go into other people's bodies as well. So you travel through certain portals in your own body, going into another person, and then you can sort of, it's like like theta healing. I don't know if you're familiar with
Sure,
that.
yeah.
So you can go in and sort of check and see what goes on, and then you can either direct the dragon certain places, or you can just have them run the show.
Right.
So yeah,
Is that the kind of work you do as well?
I do. Yeah.
And so it's sort of with cooperation with the client.
Yeah. So when I have people come in for an energy healing, I put my hands on them, and then energy starts to flow. But I also take my dragons out for a spin, and they go and sort of crawl through people's bodies and find stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's many different levels. It can be physical or emotional, or levels that we don't have any words for.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I work with animals as an animal communicator and healer, and then there's often like physical stuff, and I kind of feel like a little bit held back because I don't know much about anatomy. I'm not a medical physician or anything like that, but I still I use my own body empathically. Is that how you...
To echo, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Totally, yeah.
To echo, so I know what's going on, and then I can feel into that sensation, and so I can understand what,
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so good to talk about because, there is no mythology for this stuff. I mean, there's more of it now, but in our general culture, people just think that we're crazy.
Sure.
And so...
Jarvis tells me all the time, that be sure that I'm not talking to other people the way I talk to him about talking to trees, going into people's bodies with dragons.
Yeah, I run into Jarvis every now and then.
He's like, you can talk to me about it, but watch out. They're gonna throw a butterfly net over you.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm just so accustomed to having these conversations with my friends now.
Yeah, so it's my normal now. So
yes, exactly.
I'm surrounded by people that have the same kind of experiences.
Right.
Not exactly similar, but it's always good to, when you talk about these things, you get more clear about how it works for you. So
Sure.
I do the same thing. I echo in my own body.
Yes.
And usually when I'm talking to a client, I usually feel the feelings first.
Yes.
I'm pointing at my chest because I had my client yesterday and I felt it here. And then physical issues might show up as well.
Yeah.
Although I must say, like those mostly show up when I go into a person's body and with the dragon, and they drag me there.
Right. What I do with animals is I do a body scan. So I empathically feel their body as though it's my own. And so if it's a cat, I'll even imagine I have big cat ears or something, and I scan the phantom cat ears, go all the way down.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so then if I get a sensation in my body, it's like a ping. I call it a ping. It's not like I feel a heart attack or I feel the pain.
Right.
I feel a ping, and then I kind of replay it like feel into it more. Yeah.
Right.
And then it'll start to inform, and it could turn into, it'll give me a sort of a fluttering or like a shade of a sensation where I'd be like, it feels like a chest tightening, or it feels like it would be pain that goes down my arm. So then that would tell me heart attack. So I think I just start to interpret it. Or I can feel like, okay, well, this part, that's the thing, though, is I'll be like, this part, I think that's where kidneys are. I kind of wish I knew anatomy better.
Right. Yeah.
But, they have to go to the vet anyway.
Right.
So that kind of stuff, that's similar
It's
to
similar
you?
to me, yeah. So I do have my my go-to ways of experiencing. So feelings, again, is very big for me. And then with the dragons, doing having them sort of, crawl through a person's body and ping whatever's going on.
Yeah.
But then also clients bring in their own consciousness, and sometimes that creates the experience for me as well.
Right.
Like sometimes, one client, when I'm doing a healing, so they bring in their own guides, and I see them, or in my mind's eye,
Sure.
and sometimes I just feel like a toaster, like nothing much goes on. So it's also depending on where their consciousness is, how much is visible for me.
Wow, yeah, of course. And it's so cool connecting with other people's guides. And sometimes they're aware, when they're aware of their own guides, even. Like if they're a person, a spiritual practice, have their own spiritual practice, and they know about their guides, and then you connect with them? Or is it often people that don't even know who's there?
Sometimes it's completely random.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I tell them about them, they go, oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a very sort of vivid experience for me. There's lots of stuff going on. And they go like, oh, interesting. I just felt a nice flutter in my heart. I feel like I just came home to myself.
I'm relaxed. Yeah. Well, we do have a call. Let's take that caller. Hi, you're on the air. Who's this?
Yes, hi. My name is Cheryl, and I was listening to your show today, and when you started to talk about the animals, Tricia, I got really excited because I have a little one that I just got. Her name is Sophia, and she is so attached, and she's such a whiner. She was a friend's dog, and I had no intentions of keeping her. She was supposed to be going to my brother's girlfriend, but she didn't want her, and She had just lost her dog, but she said it was too soon. But I'm just having issues not connecting, because we're connected, but I can't do anything or go anywhere. She whines. Oh my goodness. She just has so many issues, and I just found out that she was given to somebody just before she was given to me, but then they gave her back, and I had no idea. So I think this little one's just been so traumatized, but I can't do anything.
Yeah, she's grounding still. She's wondering if that she's going to be able to stick. The newest one to my family, a kitty, he had some of that transitional time too. And she's young, Sophia is?
No, somebody said that she was 6, and then somebody said no, she's like 11.
Oh goodness!
But she looks young.
Okay.
She looks really young.
I think that, just give her some time. You can talk to her out loud. By the way, I have to say, I forgot. The doors are open for registration for my animal communication program. It's a 4-week program. So go check that out on my website. Yeah. It feels like, Cheryl, that you might really love that program. You can find it on my website, triciacarcharm.com. Just go to Healing Arts Academy, Animal Communication. It's actually triciacarcharm.com/animal-communication. We actually start late July is when the program starts. But in the meantime, you can speak out loud to her and just keep reassuring. When you speak out loud to her, feel very deeply, we are together forever. I'm your forever home.
Okay.
Yeah, and that'll help her. She's just feeling that the sort of abandonment issues, I would say. Jeroen, what do you think? Jeroen,
yeah.
I suck. I'm usually really good at it. Jeroen, you have Kitty. You're very close with animals. Do you have any thoughts or feelings for Cheryl?
I am not.
Please help me.
I don't know what to say, because I'm not an animal. I'm not an animal communicator.
No, but you're an animal lover. That's all right.
I'm an animal lover. So I was just thinking about my own cat, who I just moved to a new place, and I just noticed how much of an influence that was on him. Just changes in the external physical for him were very jarring, and he felt where he was very confident before, he became a little bit more skittish and looking around a little scared. And it's taken quite a while. So I'm actually giving him flower essences.
Oh, good. Yes. Thank you for. Have you heard of Bach flower essences? BACH, like the composer.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you using those with Sophia?
No. I will be.
Rescue remedy. And that's fantastic for any times where there's transition or anything that is stressful. It takes a little, I think you need to use it for a couple of weeks. You just do a couple of drops in the water, and that is that's really helpful. I haven't been using them lately.
Thank you.
Yeah. So see, that's perfect. Thank you I totally forgot about the flower essences. Really to help her, just to start to support that. And should she call some dragons in to help with little Sophia, you think?
Any help available, yeah.
Right.
If you talk to it, they'll come in and help you out. Yeah.
And Cheryl,
really?
Absolutely. And she has her guides. You can also remind Sophia that she can connect with her guides, because she may be feeling a little bit topsy-turvy right now. When I connect with animals, and if they're having some issues, or if they're younger animals, sometimes I have to remind them to build a relationship with their spirit guides. And they're aware of them much more than humans are. They don't have as much amnesia as we do, but they kind of still, but they have their path of spiritual and mental and physical development just like we do as well. So if you want to remind Sophia that if she's feeling insecure, she can just spend time with her guides and go and do some meditation and soul work when you have to go somewhere else. And she'll be like, oh, that's a good idea. I bet you she would.
I'm going to try that today.
Yeah, and so you can just speak aloud to her if that's easy. If that's easier for you, I tell people to either speak aloud if that helps you to focus on the feelings, or speak only in your mind if that helps you to focus on the feelings, so that the auditory, if that distracts you. But the important thing is feeling the resonance of what it is you want to communicate to her. So feeling peace, feeling stability, feeling family, all of that. I think she'll start to, and we also have to kind of control our expectations that we put upon our animals, because they take their own pace, they take their own time. But know that she'll be all right. She'll be all right. She'll figure it out.
Oh.
And thank you for taking care of her.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, thank you for calling in, Cheryl. I hope to talk to you again.
And you have a great show. I just wanted to say you have a great show. And your guest, Jeroen, that was so interesting today. So, I was listening and I was loving it. So now I have to find my dragon.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure he or she or it is right there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Hope to speak with you again.
Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
I love animals.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you and Kitty I got to meet Kitty.
Yeah,
That's
my
his
kitty's
kitty's
special. I just had my birthday party last night,
Yeah.
and he was there. He's very comfortable in crowds.
Oh,
and,
yeah?
And people that had never met him, like, oh my God, he's so special. He's like a little person, and yeah, he's a special little kitty.
How old is he?
Probably around 10. I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
quite sure.
Yeah. Oh, he's so beautiful. I
He
love
taught
him
me
so much.
so much.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
animals
know.
are such amazing teachers.
It reminds me of, Eckhart Tolle was one of my first teachers, not in person, by his books. And I just remember I had his audiobook of The Power of Now.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him saying, because he voices the book, and he says, I've had 7 gurus in my life, all of them cats. And I
Yes.
was like, oh, I love this man. Yes, they are fantastic teachers of presence, animals are.
Yes. And also for me about relationship to the natural world.
Yes.
Yeah. When you connect with them and find out how conscious they are and sentient, and then per extension, or how do you say that? Like every animal is. He helped me become a vegan. I was vegetarian, and then I was like, oh my God, I love my cat so much. He's so special.
Yeah.
He's so sensitive. And how can I, support any animal, or any person being exploited and being hurt
Right.
just for my food.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, but the plant life is important as well. I'm sure you eat,
Yes.
very consciously that way, because plants. I did a show not too long ago. Plants, everything is alive. Everything is conscious. To me, there's conscious. Where there's energy, there's information.
Yes.
And it is really important to be conscious of that as well, because there are animals that are harmed when plants are farmed. If animals are like your have a greater affinity to animals, which there's nothing wrong with that, than plants, and that's kind of normal because they are more similar to us.
Right.
But it is important if you are vegan because of how you want to pay attention to how animals are treated, it's important to pay attention to the plants as well.
Totally.
Because if they're treated poorly, then the whole ecosystem and any animals in that area will be treated poorly.
Totally. We are part of our environment.
Yes.
We are it.
We
We're
are
part of it.
nature.
Yes. So I find the more that I got into a relationship with myself, the more I was able to be in relationship with my environment. And there was more communication happening. I was more aware of the communication. So,
Yes.
It's the same with plant life. And like any places around us where there's destruction, exploitation, I don't want to support it.
Right. And
Because-
it messes with your own energy and your own clarity.
Yeah, and it's also, we're all expressions of source. Everything is. So, it just feels like going against my own nature to
It is, exactly.
to do that.
Yeah, it's harming yourself. And I remember even before my awakening, it always confused me how, let's say, the large companies and the CEOs or whatever who are making grillions of dollars while their employees are sort of living almost in poverty or in the poverty line. And I just didn't understand that. I was like, if you have all the money in the world and then no one else has it, that's where you live, though. You see, it just does not even, it's not
It doesn't
logical.
compute. Yeah.
I don't understand, you want it to have but I guess it's just such unconsciousness that they're not really even feeling that. We just kind of walk around naturally understanding that.
Right.
But it's our job to.
It was baffling to me.
Yeah.
That wasn't very clear to people.
Yeah.
Like, it's not sustainable.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable because you have to live here.
Right.
Yeah.
What are you going to breathe? What are you going to eat? What are you going to drink?
Yes.
Right.
Or if you're living in your castle and you leave your castle at all and there are people dying on the street outside of your castle, to paint a horrible picture, it just doesn't make any sense. You don't live in a happy space then.
Right. And where's the food going to come from?
Yeah, exactly. Right. But the thing is to be able to recognize that and then move beyond it and realize, well, isn't it sad for that person who's that unconscious? And the reason we're that conscious is to be able to help them to hold that frequency so they can learn, so that their hearts can be changed as well.
Yes. And so that's why I think it's very important for all of us to step into our own authenticity.
Yes.
So that we disengage from the messages that we've absorbed about what it means to be a man or a woman, or to be white or to be black, or to be Asian. But instead to look at or what kind of gender we should be, and instead to look at our own experience, like who are we within all those messages, and to disengage. And so, because when we have more access to ourselves, we are expressing more of Source on the planet, and I think that's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
And so we can be voices for good and creativity and imagination, rather than to buy into these destructive systems that have been around.
Yes, and the way that we actually help to change those destructive systems is by loving absolutely every single person, because when people are feeling special and harmed, as being a very sensitive person yourself, it's very difficult as a sensitive person to stay in. You have to make a certain effort to stay in the love of it, and not to just feel the darkness of it, and to be in the pain of it, because that actually doesn't change it. To be in the pain, to vibrate to the pain of it, and to identify to the pain, you actually have to rise above it and love. Even if someone is oppressing and harming others, you have to love them in order to help them to change. Right.
We're all part of the same system.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's hard to not go into sort of a spiritual bypass about that stuff.
Of course. No, that's a very good point. We don't just say, well, just love and light. No, you feel through the feelings. You don't abandon the feelings and ignore them. You have to feel. You have to transmute. The way through is in. Right.
Exactly. So it's two ways. I think that it's two ways. So we have to acknowledge the destructive systems that are in place right now. The way that the food system is being treated, the white supremacist tendencies of our country, how we deal with immigrants, how we have been dealing with women, with gay people. So it's to be aware of all those systems and to find your own truth within them, and to say, hey, I might have been buying into some of these things just unconsciously, but it's not the truth of who I am.
Right.
And so that's why I think it's important to, well, this brings me back to the second part of it. It starts with yourself. So it starts with loving all the parts of yourself, so you in turn can have more compassion for others.
Yes. And you do actually have to, when you recognize that, there's some detoxing to do.
For sure.
In the spiritual and the energetic bodies, in the mind. Yeah. Because you don't realize that you've been unconsciously supporting systematic oppression in different ways.
Exactly.
And to have your compassion for yourself, to heal yourself for that, not to judge yourself for it, but also to just bypass it. Yeah. It's challenging.
Yeah. To know that you are love, but yet you have been raised in a place that wasn't all love, and that you've certain tendencies were seated inside of you for a specific purpose, but that you can transform through it and be more present for who you are.
And one thing that is coming up for me to remind people, because sometimes folks are afraid to do some inner healing, because they feel like they're going to go in there and be re-injured by darkness, whether it's something they've experienced that happened to them or something about themselves that is shadow. But the truth is, you're already there. You already have that injury. So you're not going to re-injure yourself if you go in there with love and compassion, with spirit. I think it's because there was some kind of, in the 60s and 70s, there was some clinical therapy where they actually did just sort of wallow around in a lot of pain and stay in the pain vibration. Right. But that's not what happens in the spiritual exploration of it. It's very gentle, and the space is held in a loving way.
And it's very customized to who you are. So a lot of people are afraid of it because they have seen other people go through processes that to them were scary or harmful, but it was just right for that person at the time.
Sure.
So what I find is that, if clients were to go back to a place where they, like if I had clients come in and they wanted to figure out what happened to them, they knew they had been abused sexually in the past and in their current life, and they wanted to see what went down. And so when that first started happening, I was scared. I didn't want them to be re-traumatized. But I found out that their higher self, actually, in that one incident, it took them to that place. I told her, I can't say that's where we're going to go, but if that were to happen, let's take it very, very slow. But I found out that a person's higher self knows exactly what they're doing. Right. So it will give them the exact bits of information that will help them make the connections without having to go through the whole traumatic experience.
That's such an empath of you to be like, no, don't do it.
Oh, hell no. Yeah.
Not the high functioning one, the lower functioning empath that's like, no. Yeah. That's okay, because it comes from integrity, the reason that you want to protect them.
Oh, yeah,
we just
of
have
course.
to become even more empowered when that shows up.
Yeah, I've gone through some very dark and scary places in my own development, and it was, looking back, it was necessary. It was what I could handle, but it was daunting at times, and so I'm careful with people.
We are almost out of time, so let's let folks know how they can get in touch with you. And I would love for you to come on again. Are you going to come on some more?
I would love to.
We have
this
so much to talk about.
Right.
And you're local. It's so fun to have you in studio.
Yeah.
You have a book here that you were featured in, yes?
Oh, yeah. So
Show that to
I just wanted to show it to
audience.
people because this book is a very good way into this material. It's called The Boy Who Knew Too Much. It's one of my clients. She wrote this book. It's about her son who in a past life was Lou Gehrig, and so she describes her journey with, believing her son and loving her son and figuring out what was going on. And so she came to see me, and she found out that she was his mom in a past life. And so she unearthed that lifetime with lots of details about their life together. And she actually went to still living descendants and relatives of the Gehrig family, and she fact-checked all the information for accuracy, and then wrote a book about it.
You worked with her in uncovering some of this?
Yeah, so the regressions that I did with her are in this book. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So for the listening audience, The Boy Who Knew Too Much by Kathy Bird.
Kathy Bird, yeah.
That's a Y, Bird with a Y.
B-Y-R-D. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Oh, I can't wait to pick that up. That's amazing. So and your website, let folks know your website. And
it's source-energy-therapy.com. My Instagram is my first name, Jeroen, and then is love is my affirmation. That's it. Yeah.
Well, and you are going to start your own channel, right? We're going to get some videos up there because you have so much to share. This is a challenge. Challenge!
Yes. Thank you for it.
Did I do that to someone else recently? Didn't I challenge them on the air? I didn't mean to.
So there's lots of, there's so much interesting stuff that happens during sessions. We haven't even gotten into that, like all the different experiences that people have, but it would be great to share about it, to give people an idea about the different realms that are happening inside of them and outside of them.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much again, everyone. Jeroen de Wit. I did it.
You did it.
I did it really well. Thank you so much for being in studio today. And I just want to remind you guys again about my mentoring that is open. If you're interested in working with me, triciacarcharm.com/mentoring, and my animal communication class registration is open as of just yesterday. So that is triciacarcharm.com/animal-communication. And, I would love it if you guys would, if you go to the podcast version, to like, subscribe, share, comment, review, whatever it is, or if you would go to my YouTube channel where in both spaces, there are different kinds of offerings in addition to the Charmed Life show. So that is youtube.com/Tricia Carr. And Jarvis is playing a song for us. That's all right. He wanted to give you a little taste of my YouTube channel. By the way, my husband composes all of the music for Charmed Life and everything that's on my channel and everything that goes in my meditations. I'm actually releasing a lot of meditations. So thanks again for being on the show, Jeroen.
Thank you for having me.
I hope that we get to connect here again.
I hope so too.
Thank you, Jarvis. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.